Glorify the King. A national security issue. When there is no food on the table of the common man as of 1948, as of the declaration made by the United Nations Security Council, if there is no food on the common man's table on any one of the 7 continents tonight, that home is in a state of an emergency, and it is a national security issue. It is absolutely imperative that our leaders of the world, whether you're in politics or you're in the church, or whether you're in business, you're an entrepreneur. I cannot speak for another man's country to the extent of which I do not know. Then there is things we would know of other people's country, but it's not relevant, even though everything on the 7 continents is relative to each other. Whose responsibility it is to remember their parent? Is it your responsibility to remember my parent? Is it my responsibility to remember your parent? Yet, based on who our parents were, the nation are taught to remember them. For example, Independence Day, 1973, 10th of July, was a very, and will always be, a very important and historic day in our country. I pay respects to our leaders, our patriarchs, the male, and our matriarchs, the female, that came before me, and the generation that lives today on the 7 continents. Now, my birth, the birth of a child by the name of Amos Jr. Miller in the year 1970. Whose responsibility is it to tell of that birth if it is a national birth? The child was a dark-skinned child. A girl was born also in the year 1970 that makes this conversation relevant. A lot have been said, a lot will be said. A lot was said. So the spirit of truth, God Yahweh may get the glory. Hebrew. The Christ name, the Yeshua, may be glorified. Hebrew. And in the Greek, in the name of Jesus. With the knowledge of God Most High. I give thanks and I give all praises, all glory, and all honor to the Father who allows us to live on each continent, in each country. And while some of us are handpicked to stand before the honorable people of this world, on this planet, in regards to human rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is hereditary for me, hereditarily speaking for me. The signing of that document supersedes, even though it's equal in respect to what the British Nationalities Act 1948 represents. Now that act still stands today because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights still stands. Yet there are so many atrocities and violations, human rights violations, not only in first world countries, but also in third world countries. It has gotten to a place where the common people desire, again, is being ignored on a global level in the name of this new world global order. Yet we must all be a part of it. So in the interest of science and technology, I stand in agreement with science and technology as it relates to many things in science, about technology. Now, our country, the Bahamas, is a great country. God Yahweh, the sovereign God. Some say Jesus, some say Adonai, some say Elohim. You know, the Elohim, some say Amen. It is the spirit of everything that is good when a human being possesses the desire, then light comes to that person even if they're not educated. It is a choice of free will. That is why in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights document and declaration 1948, and also you will find in the British Nationalities Act 1948, and you will also find in the Bahamian Constitution chapter 3, specifically speaking, the article 15 speaks to this issue. The article 28 speaks to the issue of protection of certain rights and privilege under the Constitution. These three documents still stands, yet as it relates to the world, I pay my respects to the world system, the United Nations General Assembly, and more specifically and fundamentally the United Nations Security Council, and to the leaders of this world who has the power to make us and break many of us in a physical sense of the word. But it is God who is able to break the life of the body and the life of the soul and the life of the spirit of that person in ways that human beings have not, many and too many human beings do not desire to know the truth. So, if you do, The knowledge is supernatural. The light is not curry favor. The light that brings life to all of us, black and white, rich and poor, influential and those who are not, common citizens of the world. Amos J. The J is for Junior. Tonight it stands for justice and righteousness. Justice Star, righteousness. Miller Israel. Amos Junior. Justice Star, righteousness. Miller Israel. And I speak humbly, I speak with respect, because a lot of things that I know tonight, had I known 3 years ago, many things that have been done, many things that have been said, what perhaps, many things, I'll say it this way, many things that were done would not have been done. Many things that were said out of anger and frustration, humiliation and shame and pain would have not have been said in the manner of which it was said as relates to my individual person and others acting in concern and others concerned. Yet had I not spoken the truth from the heart, led by the light, not the artificial light before you tonight or tomorrow morning or this morning or this afternoon or this evening, wherever you are, when you see and hear. You know, for some of us on the 7 continents as relates to human rights and human rights violations, we are brought to the place where we have to decide whether we live in the context of the world system and its order, or we live according to the order of God, living in a global world and having to adhere to the global world standards. All of us must adhere to the standard. All of us must be subject to this equal right to the order of this standard. I was born on the 2nd of June, 1970, in the colony of the Bahamas, in the colony of the Bahamas, a colony of the United Kingdom and Great Britain at the time. I was born a United Kingdom citizen. And as British citizen at the time, had my parents who also at the time would have been British citizens and United Kingdom citizens, they were not afforded the very same rights and privilege. 8 years after legislation in 1962 was legislated in the British Parliament as relates to non-whites. So may the truth of integrity, advocacy, based on knowledge, founded and rooted and ground and planted in God's word. Those of us who believe in our Christ, the Yeshua, in the West today, did not always know that name. We came to know that name because we prefer to live in the order of the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thus we get to learn his Hebrew name. And so tonight I say, in the name of Jesus Christ, in the West, Hebrew in the East, the Yeshua. Let us say, our Yeshua, our Jesus, our Yeshua. Let us be equal. Let us be equal in spirit and in truth. Let us have like the British One thing about the British Nationality Act, I I am always grateful for the opportunity to be able now to meditate slowly now, slow down, calm down, and think and read more, connect myself with the world from the Bahamas while we're going through a national emergency, national security emergency. The government now tonight, believe it or not, will be commended by Amos Jr. Miller Israel because they are indeed doing what they can to prevent crime in our country. That's all they can do is try to prevent it. They cannot stop some wayward person from breaking the law. Yet, did not Amos Jr. Miller Israel from in the last 3 years would have offended the law? And this is the truth. The common man and woman in this country, many of us are before the courts tonight. Well, maybe not tonight, but before the courts in our countries, respective countries on the 7 continents, the common men and women now speaking because of the way the system wants to do business. Now, we all must adhere to the system, but the system too must adhere to certain rights and privilege, equal rights and privileges that common man and women, men and women, are entitled to in their country. And no matter how much the machines rise, how much the rise of the machines may rise, as the technology and the science may be advanced, we will never forget, we will always take from tonight on the knowledge of the old truth and link it and bridge it with the knowledge of the future. But we must do it in peace, love, and in harmony. In the name of the Christ, my Yeshua, my Jesus. This is what I say. This is what I do. This is my desire under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The 3 years that I had the privilege to live in this world, whether justly my family were treated or unjustly, righteously or unrighteously, it does not matter. 3 years later, the country was allowed to go independent. Now, it's on these grounds I bring this national security issue in respect to illegal immigration. And I will say it this way, segue into it this way. My birth in 1970 and 3 years later the country going independent must not negate the fact that 3 years before 1973, before I would have been acknowledged and my birth to a Bahamian male and a Bahamian female at the time whose parents and grandparents are Bahamian, go all the way up to like at least 6th generation. So, to not have the privilege to be acknowledged in 1973 when our country went independent, after things would have leveled off, at least, you know, at least between 67 and 73. 67 would have been 3 years before I born. 73 would have been 3 years after. 3 plus 3 is 6. The child was a male child. The child was sent to the house of a great Bahamian who have been neglected and forgotten by Great Britain also. But I do not bring condemnation tonight against Great Britain because you know what? For some reason, some of us must be trained and you know, let's face it now. I'm hurting tonight because my family and because of everything. Once you follow Amos and get the full story of everything leading up to tonight, I'm humbled that I have been taught a lesson. But for this lesson to be taught on this magnitude and on these fundamental, hereditary, rooted, esoteric grounds for some, I'm not number one on the airwaves when I speak because of my doing, but it's because I'm willing to let the spirit of love, the spirit of light, illumination, illuminate the star of the seven continents, which is its common people, being in unison with government, its government being in unison with its constituents. Thus, the time, the time in the Bahamas have come where, you know, injustice have forced this royal birth. You know, the boy is was born on a historic and royal day as relates to who was being honored, who was the greatest person or the number one person on the 2nd of June 1970 in regards to the international world, in regards to royalty, who was being honored on that day, and how many countries would this sovereign head be head over on that day, from that day to now, is still also reigning over this nation, who at the time would have been a colony and now is an independent, sovereign, 40-year-old independent sovereign nation, who was once a colony of this reigning sovereign that still lives, and so may this reigning sovereign have my greatest humble forgiveness. I'm asking the House of Windsor to forgive me now for things, for the way I said some things. Not that I'm asking to forgive me or I'm taking them back. What I'm saying to the truth is that because of injustice and because I was defrauded out of a rich history, I said those things. Now I know the truth. You can't stop me from speaking it. I spoke it, and had I not done what I did, I would have not had the privilege to say good night to Her Majesty, reigning sovereign, Queen Elizabeth Alexandra Mary II, on this 18th day of September 2013. I go to court on the 23rd of September 2013 in regards to a threat of death made towards a human being who first made the threat towards me. And in full context, you know, it's a bunch of nonsense. And tonight, both of us are alive, and the day will come when both of us will shake hands, because no one can stop this truth. I was born on Her Majesty's Day. Now, this is the 9th month, and when you add the 18th day, the numbers 1 and 8 together, you get 9. Now I go to court in 5 days, so I get 995. Case number 00995 / 2011, heard before Chief Justice Sir Michael Barnett, Her Majesty. Whatever was said towards that man, in the spirit of seeking the truth, I humbly ask Her Majesty to forgive me, because he represents, you know, your people. They numbered my house, Her Majesty, in the Blue Hill Road South area, in the area where so many illegal immigrants that my grandfather, Willis Miller generation, blocked and stopped the line, Acklands, Cricket Island, and Long Key. That line was solid. They could not pass that line very easily, even though they passed. They passed because the men who had the ability to stop them was not afforded the opportunity, the national opportunity to be compensated for that heroic opportunity to serve their country and then benefit from their talent of the day. That's all. This generation for me I cannot forget, because I was born on your day, the day, you know, the world chose to honor you, rightfully so, fine. So I pay respects then, today, on behalf of the truth. And I hope at the end we all will get along and see eye to eye in regards to my opinion in this country. Now, the government was changed. Young and old have been given an opportunity to be blessed in our country. And it's for these reasons I have been denied. Now, with this truth being and becoming light, I hope everyone, including myself, will humble under the mighty hand of the truth, humble under the mighty hand of justice, equal rights and opportunity in a greater way for everyone on the level we find ourselves. I want to good night to you, sirs, my lord brothers, respect. I pay respects equally to the Bahamas government, to the government, not the party governing at the moment, to the government itself, not the opposition of the government at the moment. The government of the Bahamas, which represents and ought to represent the people of this country. Now, as it relates to the parties that have had the opportunity to lead and govern our country, the old order of way will come to an end once everyone balance out and understand the poor and the needy we will have with us always because of disobedience. Some people just would not choose to do certain things. But when the truth comes and we hear the truth, we are taught the truth, those of us who accept it, let them now benefit, from the cleanness of their hands, the hands of their heart. Her Majesty, maybe one day you find it in your heart to forgive this young man for the disobedient way. In my humble opinion, I would have communicated some things. I was so angry, losing, control of what I thought was my words. But now I know, tonight, that we all are only human and we all can make mistakes. So as I pay respects on this level, I also wish to pay respects to the house of Mr. Oriel and Patricia Roll. I intend for my name to be vindicated and to be recognized by Her Majesty, who's head and reigning sovereign of our nation. In the earthly, kingly, queenly anointing of this day. Equally, Her Majesty, may it be known that I have achieved an achievement that is second to none ever on the 7 continents. Second to none ever on the 7 continents. Thus, my achievement qualifies this, your 40-year-old Commonwealth, to be considered spiritually continent number 8. Or you can call it number 0, and then they can stop to 7. But let the count start from 0. Either which way we get 8. So instead of using a 0, we will just, in the spirit realm, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 continents. Because no one else, Her Majesty, have been chosen by your God, our spiritual King of all kings, our spiritual Lord of all lords, black and white, rich and poor. Tonight, we end the frustration. Tonight, I end my humiliation, simply because I know the truth in regards to my birth. That simple little thing would have prevented, perhaps, over 400 videos on YouTube, in the manner of which they were presented. So I also wish to say thank you, Your Majesty, for giving consent for the Royal House of Windsor to end up on Facebook. Pay respects to everyone who knows what I'm doing and what I'm saying would be the right direction to take. Give and take. Everything concerned. Her Majesty, your boy is going to still target the talk shows in regards to the truth, because you know this is my nature. There's a lot of things I would like to do in honor of my country, in honor of our Queen, Irene, head of our state. Okay? I'm not a royal bird, chosen by the King of all living, God of all life form, to say great things and to do great things because of the will of man, but it's because of his choosing and his doing. Tonight I stand still, that we all may hear with our ears and see with our eyes, hear with our eyes and see with our ears the salvation of the light that cannot be extinguished by human ingenuity. So let the light that light up the life of all man, that did not charge really no man for breath today, tonight, this morning, a dime for the air we breathe. Her Majesty, my country is overtaken by illegal immigrants because of some corrupt men and women in our country, families now, Her Majesty. However, I caution myself now and pay my respects to these families this way. It is now time for Amos to stop making these videos on empty stomach. No one have the right to do this to its citizens in the name of governance and in the name of the governing party and in the name of the leader of a party, in the name of the leader of a party that has the opportunity and privilege to lead the government of God's people. Now, I have been taken advantage of because there were some things I had to learn. I have learned these things, and I wish to move on in a greater way. Sit down and speak with GE investors now. Everything must be returned to the Ark of the Covenant and the Charter of the 1700s. Return by allowing me the opportunity to see them, to touch them, look upon them to the best of my ability, or that is allowed. It represents the world recognizing that, hey, you can't take a man bread and give it to dogs. It represents you giving that man an opportunity to live and benefit from its natural resources of his country. This is the right path to take. This is the path that prevents wars. However, wars will always have to be fought. So I take the side of those who would do good, who would like to see me live because of the truth. So, as a young elder living in the continent number 8, The eighth wonder. Is number one. The God of the eighth wonder. Yahweh is his name. So, the illegal immigrants can come as much as they want, but I only need the Bahamian people to know I have the records of this generation, the 1948 generation, the 1900, early 1900 generation. Do y'all want me to tell y'all what's the name of the real Bahamians and how we could just send and find out, number one, in respect to law, who's legal and who's not, who's legal and who should be questioned in regards to their documents in respect to citizenship that they would perhaps be holding and how they got hold of them. Do y'all want me to teach you how to do that? I can. The Acklands Cricket Island and Long Key Association, Lord's family, the churches throughout Acklands Island, one of the islands in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, former colony of the United Kingdom, Pinefield Acklands. There is a church in Pinefield Acklands, the St. Luke Native Baptist Church. It was dedicated to that community in 1948, August of 1948. This is the richness of who speaks with you tonight, Bahamas and world. So let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart given to me by supernatural illumination and through hereditary and by birth, chosen birth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. The words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart is true. May it be acceptable in your hearing. This morning, may it be acceptable in your hearing this afternoon as you have lunch. This evening as you sit at your dinner table or in private, listening. We, the common Bahamian male of this order, the DYNAMOS order, so to speak, we're being extinct in our own country as relates to and in the name of government. This cannot be right. You cannot refuse by policy, governmental policy, that violates and contravenes individual sovereign rights as relates to the policy of a government in the denial of allowing the nation to do these jobs and these work. You cannot, in good conscience, allow that. It is a reason for a lot of things that I do not wish to go into, other than to say, we cannot legislate bad policies and then persecute persons like Amos Junior Miller Israel for starting up for his own life, his own individual sovereign right now. I was denied by the Free National Movement and the Progressive Liberal Party from legally and honestly becoming successful in my country, and was systematically prevented, conspiracially, by conspiracy to not act fairly. It's harsh words, but it's words, but it's the truth. Now, if everyone willing to understand, the reason why is now known. I'm prepared to move on and show my talent and benefit from my talent. But if anyone challenge me in any way, harm, to bring harm to me, that would bring harm to my children, that owns the right to have a father in this world and their biological father in their life, even if the marriage in which they were conceived did not work out. This is what the national security issue is all about in our country. When you are not allowed to speak freely according to these rights and privilege, if your constitution affords you these rights and privilege. So, on these grounds is why I I'm offended by ruling by Justice Milton Evans and ruling by Chief Justice Sir Michael Barnett. However, all things can be fixed. So let us fix the things that are good, because the brother, that's me, Amos Jr., and the junior, like I said, stands tonight for justice, star righteousness. Okay? I give thanks and praise to be alive after doing what I would have done and said what I would have said, in the manner of which I would have said these things, out of anger, many of which I do not perhaps mean from my heart in the context of which it's presented. However, it must be said. What was said at the time would have had to be said by me, and it was done. And at the end, Yahweh, yes, my Lord, is Christ the Yeshua, that we know as our Jesus, got the glory in the West. And thus, things in the Bahamas and around the world as relates to Amos Jr. Miller Israel will never be the same ever again. I want to say good night and thank you for listening.